Let's talk about tastes. Who can explain why we eat? To live. But why do we overeat? We overeat so much that we can't even get up from the table. So this leads to a problem. We eat to live, but we can't live because we've overeaten. There's no correlation here. It's not clear what the real issue is. Who knows? After all, why do we eat? For energy. But energy can be obtained just from the air. There's a lot of energy in the air. Do you know that some people don't eat at all? They only feed on air. It contains plenty of nutrients for humans. Haven't you heard of it? It's rare. It's very rare, but it happens. Or they eat very little. Some people survive on smells, you know? They just sniff. How much sniffing would you need to do to get full? In fact, we need to understand one simple thing first. If you grasp it, and I'll remind myself about it as well, if I understand it, then together we'll understand it, and our lives will become easier, much easier. We need to understand that we eat to replenish our subtle energy. In other words, we eat for pleasure. Throughout the day, our subtle energy body becomes depleted. A person may feel weak, but they don't feel severely weak, right? It's not like we feel as though we are dying of thirst or completely exhausted, right? Imagine a well-fed, corpulent woman who, 4 hours after eating, suddenly becomes all skin and bones. Then she sits down to eat, and literally within an hour or two, she's back to her corpulent body again. Nothing like that even happens, right? You'll agree we have plenty of reserves, yet for some reason we always feel hungry and have a strong urge to eat. What's the problem? We don't want to eat just anything. We crave something specific, right? And that's where the problem lies. We don't understand these things at all. We sincerely believe that if we feel a gnawing sensation in our stomach, it means we lack nutrients. That's what we think, right? But this mindset leads to nutrients expanding the body more and more and accumulating in different places, eventually making our old clothes no longer fit. That's why they create special elegant boutiques which sell only special elegant clothes. And all these elegant people are absolutely sure that they eat to live. We think that we lack nutrients, so we sit down and eat. At some point we suddenly feel it's enough. Before, it wasn't enough. Even when the stomach was already bloated, we kept eating. At some point we realized that's it, it's enough. No more bread, thank you. But we could still eat some potatoes. Just a little more, and then that's it. Now it's enough potatoes. Now maybe something sweet, just a little bit. And then that's it, enough. But if we truly eat just to live, then what's the difference? You can eat only bread and that's it. What's the problem? Is it an incorrect balance of proteins, fats, carbohydrates? Since we know exactly where the right balance is, we go and indulge in cake only. When we are full of cake, we don't want anything else. There is no balance at all. But when we're fed only bread, we say, there's not enough balance here. We need to add something else. We need balance. Add something sour, sweet, spicy, salty, and voila, there is a balance. But this has nothing to do with carbohydrates or proteins. Sometimes we taste something a little bitter or too sweet. We feel the need to sweeten it or add salt and something else, right? This has nothing to do with proteins or carbohydrates. You don't sit there thinking that you are low on lecithin. Lecithin? Where's lecithin? There's no such thing, right? Lecithin doesn't come to our mind. What comes to our mind is some kind of taste. It's too salty here, we think. Why does this happen? It's because our subtle energy body directs our cravings. These cravings move in certain directions. These directions are all linked to taste. The activity of our subtle energy body, that is, our psyche, moves in various directions. And all these directions are connected to some taste. You understand? A person in a certain mental state, formed by their habits, experiences a depletion of a specific part of their subtle energy body. And this depleted structure gets replenished when this person feels the urge for something sour. They simply feel it this way. They're not told, you have been spending a lot of time being offended by everyone and holding grudges or anything like that. This information is not conveyed to them. Instead, they're just told internally, I want something sour. That's it, they eat something sour and they feel better. This has nothing to do with nucleic acids, right? They just ate something sour and suddenly they felt better. We all know this situation, right? Sometimes you crave something sweet or salty. This is related to the activity of the senses. It's related to the activity of the mind, but has very little or nothing to do with the activity of our cells in the body. Purely physical aspects of this are negligible. Because our cells, which feed on various chemical substances, are also part of a common subtle energy structure. That means that it's all supported by the subtle energy body. You understand? This common subtle energy body gets depleted. As a result, a person craves food. They replenish their subtle energy body. So a very fat person, in principle, has the same subtle energy body. They live and act in the same way. And they will feel hunger because a certain component of their subtle energy body has been depleted. As a result, they feel a particular craving for something specific. If they are offered something different, but also caloric, they say, "No, thank you. I won't eat." So when we are forced to eat something that we don't really want, it means that we are simply eating what we don't need. You understand? If you crave something and it's at the right time to eat it, it means that it's beneficial for you. But if you want to eat something not at the right time, it means it comes from harmful desires that will eventually destroy you. That's why it's damaging. Who was at the lecture where I talked about time? A few people were there. In that lecture, I explained how each type of food has its appropriate time to be eaten. For instance, sweet foods should be eaten before 9 a.m. The ideal time to eat is between 7 and 9 in the morning. That's the right time. If you want something sweet at this time, it means it's good for you. Grains and legumes should be eaten between 10 and 2 o'clock in the afternoon. If you crave them during this time, they are beneficial for you. But if you are hungry for bread at night, it's harmful. It means the craving comes from bad desires, harmful habits, and wrong actions. So when should you eat meat? In past lives, when we were animals, that was a time of meat eating. But that period is over now. That time has passed. It's also about timing. If you crave to eat meat now, it means it's no longer the right time for it. Because the appropriate time was when we had tails and we wagged them. It probably happened to everyone in past lives, 100%. In certain lifetimes it was appropriate, but that time has passed. Some of you are laughing in the back. Something seems amusing to them. There are various classifications of tastes. Let's now discuss the classification of tastes. There is a sweet taste which is connected with the activity of our senses, driving us toward progress, joy, and happiness. This taste enhances pure goodness in a person. The energy rises up to the head, and one becomes enlightened from the sweet taste. This results in a person becoming more gentle, calm, kind, and enlightened. There is sweetness in sugar, but there are also sweet spices. Sweet spices are more beneficial than plain sugar. However, plain sugar or honey are also beneficial if consumed at the right time. If someone eats sweet food at the right time, they will notice significant improvements in their qualities as well as joy, happiness, calmness, and kindness. But if consumed at the wrong time, it brings out laziness. Lazy people tend to eat sweets after 9 a.m. The later someone craves sweets, the lazier they become. Those who like to enjoy life at someone else's expense are the ones who tend to eat sweets at inappropriate times. That means not doing good themselves, not deriving joy from their own work, but instead deriving joy from someone else's labor. It's such a quality of character. Eating sweets at the right time boosts the joy of working. But if one eats sweets at the wrong time, it points at a person who likes getting happiness at another's expense. They don't get natural happiness, only something material. But since God gives knowledge to everyone from within, everyone feels when they are being exploited. Then we are cut off from true happiness. When we live at someone else's expense, when we live for ourselves, not others, we might get something from others, but it's not filled with joy. You understand? That's why we feel that something is missing. Everyone craves joy, and sometimes we replenish it with a sweet taste from food. That is, we eat up this joy. We take it and eat it in the form of a cake at the wrong time, and thus, in this case, the energy of prana goes down. The energy goes down and fills the lower organs. The person experiences anger and lust, becomes passionate, greedy, and lazy. A person wants to sleep, relax, and somehow enjoy without using their head. Animal instincts awaken in a person then. Every person has these animal instincts. They are the same for everyone. The difference is where the energy will flow. If our energy moves upward, it fosters creativity and a desire to serve others and God. We get a feeling of elevated happiness. However, if the energy flows downward, then we develop laziness, lust, anger, greed, and we want to argue with everyone. That's the result of the energy's movement. Therefore, when sweets are consumed at the wrong time, the energy descends. What does this lead to? Hormonal functions suffer as they are closely tied to joy. Forces of joy are tied to our hormones. Various forces of joy, happiness, and pleasure are in the hormonal functions of a person. When a person eats sweets at an inappropriate time, the lower hormonal organs located in the lower part of the body become filled with energy. These are, namely, the appendages, which are associated with our animal instincts. Additionally, the adrenal glands are energized, and these are linked to our sense of self-assertion. As a result, the person becomes arrogant, lazy, greedy, and lustful. All this happens due to the consumption of sweet food. The most significant descent of energy down to the lower organs occurs when a person consumes sweet food in the evening, in the second half of the day. When sweets are eaten during the day, the sweet energy accumulates in the abdominal area, creating a reserve. This is stored as fat. But when sweets are eaten in the morning, the sweet prana energy rises up and the person feels happiness. The person experiences a surge of happiness and even starts laughing right away. Who has eaten sweet foods like dairy and fruits in the morning and felt a sudden surge of happiness? They laughed at a small joke afterward. Are there such people? There are a few, as it happens naturally. For those who eat dairy, sweets, and fruits in the morning, the effect is noticeable about 5 to 10 minutes after eating. Even if you show them something insignificant like a pinky finger, they might burst into laughter. They start laughing simply because someone said something. If you record this on a hidden camera, you could get the impression that people are intoxicated. Even trivial things cause uncontrollable laughter. They start laughing so hard they end up rolling on the floor. This is the effect. It's like a burst of energy for the whole day. Therefore, it's highly beneficial to eat sweet food in the morning. Even diabetics have told me that their blood sugar doesn't rise if they eat around 8 o'clock in the morning. There are also sweet spices that should be added to dairy foods in the morning. You can add a small amount of cinnamon in the morning. In the evening, cinnamon should be avoided. It raises blood pressure and this can disrupt sleep. Among sweet spices, you can use only fennel or cardamom in the evening. All others are stimulating, so you shouldn't use them in the evening. That means that you should add them in the morning, not in the evening. Also, there are herbs that can be considered sweet and are in pure goodness. They are golden root and eleuthero. You can also add them to food in the morning. Then this mixture will give you strength and a lot of energy. But it's better not to add golden root and eleuthero for those who have high blood pressure. People with high blood pressure can add cardamom and fennel in the morning. They will lower blood pressure and bring joy. So the sweet taste belongs to the mode of goodness, remember, right? People in the mode of goodness and lazy people like sweet things. Lazy people are also people in pure goodness, but who haven't yet manifested their goodness. All their goodness goes to the lower center, so it doesn't manifest. But as soon as they want to live for people, not for themselves, their goodness will immediately manifest, and they will become happy and joyful. Therefore, all those who love sweets, it means that they have a taste for pure goodness. The question is how they direct their activities. If they want to grab, to attract to themselves, it means they will suffer. And if they want to do things for others, it means they will have happiness in life. The next taste is astringent, or we can say tart. It may sound different in Russian, but in any case, it's the same term. This taste belongs to passion. That means a positive passion. These two tastes are depleted when a person labors improperly. And they are necessary for a person to work, to increase strength and resilience. In this case, prana accumulates. It doesn't rise anywhere and doesn't descend. It simply accumulates in the body in order to work. Therefore, you can sometimes like the astringent taste in the morning, although it's not timely to have an astringent taste at this time. Sometimes in the morning, people like to eat something astringent, black bread, or something like that. This is associated with the desire to work constantly. That means that joyless work makes a person eat like this. There's a desire to fry something in the morning. This also gives an astringent taste. You get the urge to eat some kind of astringent products. That's why when a person works hard, they have such desires, but this won't give us health. And what will we get? We will develop a tendency towards self-wear and tension. A person who eats astringent taste in the morning and at night is depleted of their prana. Prana and energy are diminishing, and such people become exhausted. Therefore, you shouldn't eat bread and products that have astringent and tart taste in the evening or in the morning. Everything related to astringent taste should be eaten during the day at lunchtime. Then our inner strength in the body increases. Energy will increase in order to engage in work and activities. Sour taste belongs to passion, and this taste is intended to remove befoulment like a certain tension. Sour is most often enjoyed by those who are resentful or feel some such oppressive feeling inside. There's a desire to eat something sour when a person feels a slight disappointment, they didn't like something. And this also happens when a person is deprived of the sun or when the weather changes. Well, more often than not, it's the opposite. When the sun increases, passions begin to increase and a person takes more offense. In spring, sour taste is more indicated to relieve this tension. Sour taste is also good at the right time, and it increases the desire to forgive. There's a desire to cleanse one's life, to change it for the better. It's best to use not sour bitter taste in food, but sour sweet, sour astringent, and sour salty. So you should better use these tastes. While sour bitter is not quite a good taste, sometimes it's useful, but only for treatment. Therefore, we should also eat sour foods at lunch. And when a person eats at the wrong time, they're trying to escape from offense, they're deeply offended. Let's say they were offended during the day. In the evening, they crave something sour they can't resist. They want something like fermented cabbage. Everyone is annoying. They want to sit alone, take a pickled cucumber and some fermented cabbage, eat and think about life, and go to sleep with a full fermented tummy. And what will happen then? Fermented thoughts will fill the fermented head all fermented night. There will be very big problems in the morning. The morning will be fermented, and you will be in a salty mood. That is a very unpleasant feeling. Therefore, it's best not to eat these sour things at night. This cleansing goes in the wrong direction when a person eats sour things at night. They become exhausted, their energy leaves the body. Their normal good energy which they need simply leaves the body. That means energy is cleansed when a person eats sour foods at the right time, and prana becomes polluted when a person eats at the wrong time, and their sensitivity and vulnerability increase. When a person eats out of time, on the contrary, their sensitivity increases. Therefore, if you eat sour foods in the morning, a person becomes more irritable and vulnerable. And if you eat sour foods in the evening, they become sentimental. They have some incomprehensible dreams all night. If a person wants to eat sour taste at night, their psyche weakens. When I explain it, you try to apply all this to yourself. What do I like to eat at night? What in the morning? Study everything. This is done especially for you. Salty taste is between passion and degradation. A person should eat salty foods at the right time. This desire to add salt comes from the desire to have a good vitality. They just want to be in sufficient tone, sufficient tension. It comes from this. When a person wants something salty, it means they are working quite actively all day. They need salt to kind of tone it up. They fix it, and therefore they feel more or less energetic. This should be eaten during the day, at lunch. That means the life energy is activated, increased, and toned up. And thus, there is an accumulation of this vital energy tone in the cells through salt. Salt is associated with nerve impulses, so a person feels more energy. Tastes associated with pure goodness and passion are more related to hormonal organs. And tastes associated with degradation are related to the nervous system. Hormonal organs are more subtle than the nervous system, and they have a more refined level of body regulation. And the salty taste increases in a person's inability to rest if they eat at the wrong time, at bedtime, or in the morning. It also increases the inability to switch to another type of activity. Prana begins to slow down and excessively accumulate in the body of such a person. As a result of this slowdown and excessive accumulation, hypertension develops. A person feels an increase in pressure, heat in the body. They feel that they cannot change their life, their activities, and can no longer change their habits. This is due to the accumulation of salty taste in the body, which causes such stiffness in life position. A person cannot change anything. Everything has somehow stabilized, dried up, and they can't and don't want to change anything in their life. Therefore, they begin to deteriorate because they don't know how to rest, they can't switch. The result is the destruction of the body. This happens when a person mishandles the salty taste, and the bitter taste relates to degradation. If a person eats it at the right time, it comes from the desire to cope with degradation and problems, and the person's protective force increases. So when the bitter taste is present in food, it increases a person's protective force. They feel that they can cope with difficulties in this case. Especially bitter spices like coriander, mustard, they provide protective force. So when a person lacks protective force, they start developing viral diseases. When viral diseases begin, bitter spices can treat them. These are coriander and yellow mustard. Ginger also has a slightly bitter taste. It treats viral infections. Black pepper also treats them. If these spices are mixed correctly, viral infections can be quickly treated in 1 or 2 days. We should know all this and use it in our lives. Let's say a person eats a bitter taste at the wrong time. What does this come from? From sorrow. Bitter taste comes from sorrow. It comes from immersion in sorrow. When people eat bitter taste in the evening, problems, difficulties, and depression increase, and the protective force decreases. In the morning, you need something sweet, and closer to the evening, something bland. All these tastes can be used safely until 5 o'clock. I mean all others except sweet taste. And after 5 o'clock, there should already be a milky taste. It means you can still eat nuts around 6 o'clock, stewed vegetables and seeds. Then closer to the evening, it should be milk. Honey represents happiness. Therefore, there are holy people who constantly feel the taste of honey in their mouth when they repeat the holy name of the Lord. But if a person eats a spoonful of honey every night before bed, they may develop diabetes. I can tell you what will happen. The immunity will decrease. The body's protective forces will gradually begin to decrease because all this is eaten at the wrong time. And what will happen then? Then mucus will start to accumulate excessively. The person will start coughing later. They will have chronic bronchitis. But you can treat it with honey. You should drink honey with hot milk at night when you have a cough. If you don't sweeten it too much, then there will be a good result. Therefore, there are different aspects. You need to know what to use for what purpose. Thus, if a person eats bitter food at the wrong time, degradation increases in their body. If a person eats sour food at the wrong time, passion and degradation increase in their body. If a person eats salty food at the wrong time, passion and degradation increase in them. If a person eats astringent food, passion increases in them. If they eat sweet food at the wrong time, then pure goodness decreases in them and everything else increases. Therefore, we should be serious about this. So, about tastes. Where does taste come from? What is the taste? Where does it originate? Taste occurs on the tongue. Does taste occur on a dry tongue? No, it doesn't. So taste is connected with water. Taste is connected with water, and water has a subtle nature. It means a subtle element of water exists. This subtle element of water has nothing to do with H2O. You understand? When the movement of vital air occurs in the body, it activates the movement of the subtle element of water. And this subtle element of water moves the nervous tissues, nervous functions in the body. The movement of nerve impulses through the tissues in the body occurs due to the contact of this subtle element of water with nerve fibers. And these nerve fibers inside are composed of water. There is water inside. The entire nervous system is filled with water from the inside, just in very microscopic quantities. We don't know this, but there's such a nerve tube, just a tube, and there's simply an aqueous solution of various salts inside it. This moves due to vital air. When a person experiences anger, their nervous system is activated in a certain way. So all this depends on the activity of the mind and senses. The mind can also be connected with our thinking, or the activity of the mind will be associated with the activity of internal organs. This is a completely different mind. Scientists call it the subconscious. They also say the autonomic nervous system. It means the one that is not controlled by us. But all this is connected with the human mind. It's all controlled by the power of the mind. But this mind has nothing to do with our understanding of what it is. This is not the mind that thinks about how much crayfish cost, whether it was $3 or $5. This is completely different. It contacts various senses in our body. There are 5 senses that are directed outward, but there is also a sense of hunger. There is a sense coming from within. Therefore, the mind contacts all these senses, and the result is an overall system, and we are satisfied or dissatisfied with it. And when we are not satisfied with all this together, what happens as a result of the interaction of the mind with the senses? A certain force is produced which is located in the area of our heart. This force gives the soul a state of joy or a state of sorrow. And when a state of sorrow comes, then we are not satisfied. We think, where can we find joy? We think, when will our time to eat come? This is one source of joy. There are also other sources of joy. When a person can no longer replenish themselves with any source of joy, they simply go and sit at the table. This is their only opportunity to replenish joy, and they just eat. What do they eat? They eat whatever they want, but they should eat what is prescribed. In fact, they eat the prana of plants. There is also the prana of dead animals. The prana of dead animals is the force that gives a person decomposing biological energy. It leads to suffering. A person feels problems from this. When a person eats the prana of plants, they feel a surge of vitality. Fresh, uncooked, raw food is filled with prana. One should eat when it's necessary to activate the nervous and hormonal functions of a person. This is necessary when one lacks strength, feels weakness, and has no energy. Then they replenish their nervous and hormonal energy with the help of plant prana, which should be eaten fresh and should be firm. Prana is what comes from firmness. Cells filled with fluid are filled with prana. Prana comes from fluid. In foods, prana comes from the fluid that is in a biologically strong form. If a fruit or vegetable is firm and fresh, we feel that the nervous system will be replenished. If patients have exhausted nervous systems and hormonal functions, they should be fed fresh products. They quickly feel strength. They shouldn't be stuffed with meat. They should be fed products that contain prana. They will immediately feel a strength increase in the body, but there is another thing in the body called feelings. You cannot feed feelings with prana coming from a firm product. It's a more tricky thing. Feelings sometimes like soft, cooked, sweet, bitter, salty, sour, or something else. Feelings demand various preparations from us. There is also a fatty taste, which does not fit into this classification. When does a person want fatty foods? When they're cold. A person wants fatty foods when they feel exhausted. When they are eating fatty foods, they become filled with calmness. When a person eats fatty foods at the wrong time, they become filled with fat. Therefore, fatty foods should only be eaten at lunch. Sometimes in the morning you can add a little bit of fat, add oil when it's cold to increase the digestive fire. Fatty food increases the digestive fire. It's like a flaming fire. A person's absorption of substances increases from fatty food. Everything is absorbed better. Food must necessarily contain fat. Everyone should eat oil. If a person eats without oil, their food is not absorbed. It simply leaves the body half digested. The question is what fatty foods to eat. Butter is the best. It suits many people and doesn't cause any problems. Food should have all tastes in it, and these tastes should have a certain harmony. Each season has its own harmony, determined by the amount of sunlight. The season may be the same on one continent, but the temperature can be different. There is a regular connection depending on the amount of sunlight. Depending on the amount of sunlight, we should consume the same amount of fire in our food. No, red pepper doesn't mean fire. Fire should be obtained from a harmony of spices. We should add as much spices and seasonings to our food as we have fire. Therefore, we don't need to add too many excessively hot spices to food in this region. We need to add more warming spices. Which spices can warm you up? The most warming spices are fenugreek and asafoetida. Do you know such spices? These two spices warm the most. Ginger in this area cools rather than warms. It warms from the inside, cools from the outside. Those who eat ginger, especially in winter, get even more overcooled and suffer from the diseases that they treat in India. There they treat colds, coughs, and runny noses. Everyone who eats ginger here gets even more sick with these. Ginger should not be used in such cases. Ginger balances the internal environment in the body there, because externally one usually needs to cool down, while internally one needs to warm up to digest food. Here, you need to warm up both internally and externally. You should eat more warm spices. Let's say they warm you up, but don't cool you down. Spices such as coriander, black pepper, nutmeg, which was mentioned, cloves. Such spices should be used in food in this area. Sweet spices are always good, but they don't warm up. Now we need to add more of these spices. Food must be oily in this area. Non-oily food cools strongly and reduces digestion. The colder the weather, the more oily the food should be, especially at lunch. There is also a firm taste. The bland taste increases purity and honesty in a person, while the firm taste increases strength. The taste of prana is the firm taste. This doesn't relate to the main types of tastes, but you should know this. What does firm mean? It means fresh cucumbers, carrots, all vegetables and fruits. Let's take questions about tastes. There's not so much food with a stringent taste. You know sloe, bird cherry, chokeberry, rowan, turmeric. There's such a spice, pomegranate peels. Pomegranate has an astringent taste. Onions and garlic don't have an astringent taste. Sweet means dairy, fruits, sugar, honey. It means sweet dairy fruit. Food that is in pure goodness is consumed in the morning. What are the sugar substitutes? Understand that there is food that has biological strength, and there is food that only has chemical strength. Sweet taste also has biological qualities. If we just eat chemical components that have a sweet taste, it won't always give us a certain joy. There won't be much joy from it. Sweet taste is given by fruits that are in pure goodness, or sweet berries, sweet vegetables which have components of pure goodness in them. For example, fennel, it's not sweet to taste, but it's a sweet spice. It has pure goodness in it. It has a sweet smell and so on. Any questions? It's necessary to consume salt. There are many misconceptions. For example, some believe that you should only eat unseasoned food. Not to salt, not to sweeten, not to do anything with it. A person becomes bland. They have a bland character. They don't smile. They're just calm. And their life becomes bland too. That means it helps to some extent. Unseasoned food cleanses. A person becomes pure, but emotionless. They just become unexpressive, joyless, uninteresting. They might laugh, but they are colorless. This all happens because various concepts, various understandings absorb us. The concept comes from the understanding of health. There are impersonal concepts and there are personal ones. Personal concepts are all connected with God. Impersonal concepts are connected with His power of happiness, simply with the effulgence of God. And all our concepts of treatment and of everything else come from just these two things. For example, if a person is absorbed in impersonal concepts, they simply meditate on radiance, on happiness, without concentrating on personality. If you ask, to whom do you wish happiness? One says, to everyone. So one doesn't concentrate on personality. This is an impersonal state. Similarly, one cultivates such cleansing methods that do not create harmony. That means one likes such types of, let's say, treatment, as separating foods, just eating rice alone, or something else. There's no color, no various personal facts, no harmony is created, nothing is adorned with a variety of compositions. Only some kind of form is present, some kind of force. For instance, rice gives a person honesty, firmness. Yes, it is in the mode of pure goodness, but the person is characterized by only one quality. As a result, one develops an internal tendency to not delve into details. One just feels good, doesn't care about anyone. One is in such an impersonal state. The person doesn't live for anyone, just for themselves. A person who is inclined towards a personal approach, a personal concept, ultimately moves towards realizing the supreme personality of God. Personal concepts mean that a person wants to communicate with people on a personal level. One wants to eat food with different tastes, characterized by some composition of taste. The person wants to understand what plant is used when they're being treated. Not just some compressed pill. They want to understand what plant it is. Why does it heal like that? What character does it have? Why should one eat this at that time and that at this time? One wants to understand everything. One asks why people laugh. This person, why does he laugh? Why is he joyful and why does he cry? All this comes from personal qualities. When a person possesses impersonal qualities, one wants no one to bother them so that one feels good. The person wants to enjoy themselves so that no one disturbs them. One wants to withdraw from everyone. They want to dissolve in this state of happiness. Impersonal happiness is very temporary. Why? Because daily the world is filled with people and they will still interfere. Someone will bring us out of this impersonal meditation. We will get angry because we haven't recognized the personalities around us. And in all the people around us, we don't see sources of happiness, but we see sources of problems because they seem to throw us off balance from our impersonal state. We want to have some kind of happiness where we don't bother anyone, somehow seclude ourselves and feel good. This is an impersonal concept. And the personal one is when a person wants happiness with someone nearby. They want happiness with God and concentrate on God. One wants all their loved ones to be happy and helps other people. These two concepts are very important in our lives. If a person understands what they're striving for, then the final result of their life and their activities has only two characteristics. This is written in the scriptures, therefore we should clearly understand what types of treatment lead to what, to the development of which character qualities in the end. What are we being cured of? This treatment, when we repeat, I wish you all happiness, means that we should concentrate on each person individually. You understand? Or we repeat the holy names of God, which means that we concentrate on various qualities of God. Because he was born at different times with different names and possessed different qualities in accordance with the eras, with necessity. People who worship one God, let's say, with certain qualities, they acquire these qualities themselves too. And if people eat certain food, they acquire the quality of this food. When people communicate with certain people, they acquire the qualities of these people. And when we live in a certain area, we acquire the qualities of that area. When we eat certain animals, we acquire the qualities of these animals. We will never get away from a personal concept. There is such a personality on which we live, it's called Earth. We don't understand this, that's why we trample on it, but it's our mother. We have several mothers. There's Mother Earth, Mother Cow, Wet Nurse, the mother who gave birth to us, the king's wife, it used to be, now there aren't such, and the priest's wife. That means all mothers are dear. They should be respected like our own who gave birth to us. But since we don't know this, we treat all of this very dismissively. As a result, there's suffering because we don't know how to treat Mother Earth. Therefore, when we treat her badly, we suffer. Do you all see what's happening now? Are there any more questions on these topics or not? This definitely contributes. If you eat sugar in the morning, nothing will be stored as fat. You can be absolutely sure nothing will ever be stored as fat. Any other questions? You need to practice yoga. When you reach high levels of yoga, then you will be able to do without food at first, then gradually without air, and then you will be able to do without this body. You'll simply leave it and go to the spiritual world. Such yoga practice is called the 8 limbs of yoga. In this age of degradation, it's impossible, because the senses are very restless. A person is distracted by everything and cannot concentrate on breathing. Therefore, one can somehow support their body, heal with all these things, but it's impossible to go deeply into this practice. This is written in the scriptures. That's why people mainly cultivate other types of practices that quickly elevate, uplift the person. Next era? After this, there will be a golden age which will last a couple of million years. So we'll have enough time to live in this one too. Water? You should drink water when you want to. And it's very beneficial to drink water in the morning, especially early in the morning. It's better to drink cool water than warm. But sometimes you can drink warm water, for example, when it's cold. We must understand that since there is a certain salt composition established in the soils, and degradation predominantly prevails in industry and ecology, therefore, you shouldn't drink unboiled water. It doesn't bring benefits. In the Vedas it's written, there exists rainwater, which brings benefits. Now all of this no longer brings benefits. Now only boiled water will bring benefits. You need to add spices to it. It should simply be allowed to settle. Various filters don't help much. Water should be boiled, settled, poured into another container and filled with spices and sweetened a little. There should be a slight sweetening and spices or rosehip. It's best to brew rosehip currant leaf. Such plants are in pure goodness. Rosehip is in pure goodness. Roses too. In India, it's very hot, and since a person is not always experiencing humility and happiness, one resists the sun with their body. And therefore the sun with its coarse energies deprives the person of their energy for protection. One defends oneself from the sun. All energy goes outward, and therefore the digestive fire naturally decreases. Especially it happens to Western people who come there. Therefore lunch should be dry. You should drink water before meals, sometime before eating. Then have a dry lunch and don't drink anything at all, and then the food is well digested. But in our area, there isn't much sun. Therefore you can drink before meals, during meals, but don't drink after meals. You can take a small sip, but not drink. You should not drink 10 minutes after eating under any circumstances. You can't drink for 40 minutes after eating, then you can start drinking. You should, especially in our area. And in India, you can only drink 2 hours after eating. You can take a small sip of water after some time. Those who have been there know that it's quite difficult to do this, but it helps. For water, you need spices that are in pure goodness. They are usually used to make drinks. It's best to use fennel, cinnamon, cardamom. Rosehip can be used most often. Currant leaf can also be used. It slightly raises blood pressure, so not everyone can use it. You can add to the drink sweet spices such as caraway, cumin, anise. Black currant fruits can be used. You should add sweetish fruits. You can add dried apricots, sweetish fruits. Until 7 in the evening, vegetables and nuts. If you're very hungry, you can eat cheese. Cheese gives strength immediately and doesn't do anything bad to the body. Cheese, vegetables, nuts. You can eat some vegetable snacks with cheese. It is very tasty. If you fry it a little in oil, cut it into cubes. Mix vegetable snacks with cheese and nuts. This will be very satisfying and pleasant in the evening. Try it. I mean cow's cheese. Now, Dutch cheeses are not always made from cow's milk. That's why I say cow's cheese. It's very quick to make cheese. Very quick. You can use cottage cheese and press it. One plant is called fenugreek in English, or methi in Indian. You don't need to memorize all the names. You see, there are many names, but if you don't eat meat and fish, eggs too, then you can eat cheese for some time. They're not all made purely, though. Some are made with rennet. It's a product of killing, but it's better for you to eat cheese now. Don't think too much about it. Later, over time, you'll study more deeply and you'll cook for yourself. It's not difficult to make cheese. Where did we stop last time? On which diseases? Did we cover viral infections? Shall we continue with diseases now? Then questions at the end. Vitiligo. Vitiligo is a disease of pigment spots. White spots appear on the body. This disease comes from excessive dryness in character, coldness, rough tension, exhaustion, incompatibility with the environment, excessive vulnerability. And such a person has inner coldness, one lacks warmth and happiness. In general, this disease arises due to a lack of kind attitude towards others. This is the subtle nature of the disease. Therefore, it is very difficult to treat. What causes blisters? They arise from fastidiousness. When a person is in a state of irritable fussiness, one is dissatisfied with something, fusses, one is displeased. This causes blisters. Blisters arise from greed, from assertiveness. When a person is excessively assertive, one may develop various diseases like hives, roughness, eating disorders. Sometimes a person eats something spicy, and blisters may appear from overwork, excessive irritability, and sometimes from fear. These character traits cause such things. What causes inflammatory processes in general? They arise from irritability, various types of irritability, from lack of restraint, from passion, greed, fear, and resentment. There is such a disease as Parkinson's. When a person's nervous system is affected, they can't walk normally, they're rushing forward. This arises from fear, a strong desire to control, lack of humility, assertiveness, tendency to physical tension. What causes painfulness? Severe oversaturation of the body with pain, when there's a lot of pain. Guilt, joylessness, passion, insolence, despair, sense of injustice, resentment, and hopeless tension. It happens that a person feels extreme pain. This especially happens in women, when they feel pain from everything. There are even such things when you just touch a person and they feel pain from a simple touch. This happens due to the increase of these qualities. Pain. Do you know the nature of pain or not? Do you know what its nature is on a subtle level? No? Remember we discussed the false ego? Remember? Pain arises as a result of irritation of the false ego. This is its nature. Why do they distract children when they fall? So that the fall doesn't contact the energy of the false ego. So that the person doesn't feel damage in this. The child fell, and at that moment they froze, didn't understand what happened. If you say, "Oh, does it hurt?" they immediately start to scream. So, you acted incorrectly, you need to distract from the false ego. There are different ways. For example, you need to urgently show something interesting, and the child gets distracted. There's a method of reverse psychology. Let's say, if one did something bad to someone with their action, one won't cry, because it's completely irrelevant here. For example, one wise man did this. When a child fell in front of him, he said, "Why did you hit the floor?" He said it sternly, and the child got scared and didn't cry. The child was distracted from the false ego in this way. Therefore, pain arises as a result of contact with the false ego. For example, we're walking through the forest and a branch hits us. Is it painful or not? It's painful, but not too much. After a minute or two, we even forget that the branch hit us. But if someone comes up and hits us in the face with the same branch, we'll never forget it for the rest of our lives. We'll feel so hurt and offended, and depending on how much we interact with certain people, the more we are connected to them by family ties, the more pain we feel inside when we come into contact with what they do. For instance, if a stranger hits me, some thug approaches, I won't feel as much pain as I'll feel fear. I might not even feel the pain and just run away from him. This happens sometimes. Someone gets hit on the street, they're just scared and run away. They don't even feel the pain. Sometimes they might do something harmful to a person, but they still won't feel the pain. They run away, they're just scared. But sometimes a closer person, a friend with whom we are more connected through our false ego, hits us or just says something hurtful. We expect them to please our senses, to do something nice for us, meaning the false ego has a consumerist attitude. And when, let's say, I'm giving a lecture, I think everyone will listen now. This is a quality of the false ego. Everyone will like my lecture. And then someone stands up and says, "Your lecture was boring today. It hurts me. I think this person is rude. What are they doing?" It's not true, right? Everything is shaking inside me. I have choking fits. Pain arises. What causes this pain? It's because our false ego is being hurt. You understand? It's being hurt, and when a person understands the nature of pain, they no longer experience pain. Can you imagine? If we realize very deeply that pain arises due to the false ego, then we don't experience pain, we don't suffer from pain. It will, of course, irritate us somehow. It will cause some processes in the skin if it comes into contact with the skin, but it won't cause suffering. Therefore, a person who has understood that they are a soul, not a body, that they have a spiritual nature, becomes absolutely happy, because all suffering in this world comes from identifying ourselves with the body. For example, if you tell a woman that she's not strong, there's no problem. But if you tell a woman she's not beautiful, that's it. It will kill her. If you tell a man he's stupid, it's also like killing him, because being smart is a masculine quality. So for him, it's like killing him straight away. It's very painful, agonizing. It's simply connected to the body. The quality is connected to the body. If I had a different body, then different things would hurt me. Therefore, we should simply understand that pain arises in connection with the body. If a person regards themselves as a soul, no matter what you tell them, they will always be happy. Such a person will think, they've found some flaw in me, I can struggle with myself, study myself more. They will just be surprised. If you tell them, you're very lazy, they'll be surprised. They'll think, really? It can't be? They'll be very surprised. And they'll start asking how this manifests. They'll start studying it because the person doesn't take offense, but is simply interested in learning what else they can improve, what character qualities they can overcome. Therefore, we should understand what causes pain. When a person becomes excessively attached to something, they receive excessive suffering from it. They become attached in the hope of gaining happiness, but ultimately end up with suffering. So we should fulfill our duty to our relatives, but we shouldn't become excessively attached. When a mother, for example, becomes attached to her child, she's no longer fulfilling her duty to them, but starts to exploit them. She says, you must become what I want you to be. She starts to torment and to pester her child. And then the child feels a source of aggression, irritation, even though their mother loves them. But this love is expressed in her pestering the child more and more, and one doesn't know how to escape from her. This stems from misdirected love, when a person wants something from their child, for the child to please their senses. Then they start demanding certain actions from them, for them to do as they want. But if a person wants to serve the object of their love, this is true love and this is parental duty. That means a person has children only to fulfill their parental duty. Parental duty means protection, guardianship. Therefore, we should treat our children in such a way as to give them the opportunity to develop in accordance with the qualities they have. Then they will be happy. They will then say, my mother is the best woman in the world, my father is the noblest and smartest person, and therefore I feel a strong gratitude that they are like this. This happens quite rarely. A person might just say this out of etiquette. But in reality, only those people whose parents truly serve their children can feel this way. Therefore, pain doesn't arise in such a family, but joy does. Pain always arises only from the false ego. Therefore, when a person can rid another person of the excessive influence of the false ego, then any operations can be done without anesthesia. There will be no pain at all. And in accordance with pain, the state of the body changes. Do you know that you can die from pain? Moreover, one is simply shocked by pain coming from the false ego. Everything is connected with the false ego. It controls the strength of nerve impulses in the body. A person's subtle nature controls their physical nature, so everything is connected with the false ego. Simply because we are strongly attached to our body, we think that we are the body. I think that I am this body, and if someone pinches me, I get very angry. I immediately feel pain in my soul. How can this be? If, let's say, some grasshopper pinches me, there's less pain, but when a person comes up and pinches brazenly, can you imagine how offensive it is? It's just unbearable. We suffer a lot. This is all connected with our material understanding of life. We think we are the body, that's why we suffer. There may be pain in joints. It arises mainly from fussiness, vulnerability, tension, inability to rest, superficiality, sometimes from infidelity, from inconstancy. Warts are a disease. They appear from hatred, cruelty, greed, passion, overwork, stubbornness, sloppiness, rudeness, and rough treatment of the body. Cruel treatment of the body is when it's abused. You can force it not to eat for 3 days and then overeat. This is cruel treatment of the body. It can't withstand such stress. There are also growths of calloused skin on the feet, various calluses. This arises from dullness, joyless work, tension, desire to lead at any cost, or rudeness. I'm not saying that all these qualities should be present. Just one of these character qualities should be present for a wart to appear. Joyless work, desire to lead at any cost, rudeness. What causes bronchitis? It arises from inability to rest, excessive straightforwardness, painful selfishness, overexertion, tendencies towards improper nutrition and lack of gentleness. All diseases connected with the front meridian are often related to straightforwardness and scrupulousness. This is all connected with a person's activity, a person's actions. Action is what comes from our center. It is where we think, where we decide, and where we act. Actions are connected to the middle meridian. Therefore, all diseases of action related to wrong behavior are located in our center. These are diseases such as frontal sinusitis, thyroid diseases, tracheal diseases, nasal diseases, stomach diseases, Female diseases of the reproductive organs are also all in the center, and spinal diseases. These are related to our improper activities. We act in the wrong state of consciousness. This is where all these diseases arise from: an acute sense of hunger, bulimia. The very first thing is greed. It comes from greed. When a person is greedy, they experience such a strong hunger. Assertiveness, lack of taste, escaping from difficulties, disappointments, fears, and hopelessness. Dear Dr. Torsunov, when can we eat cakes? At what time? You can eat them at lunch, a small piece at the end of the meal, preferably not every day. How to deal with physical pain in case of a serious illness where the pain almost never leaves a person. How to relieve such pain without resorting to medication. Through self-awareness. When a person understands that an organ is hurting, that pain in the organ occurs only because this organ wants strength, love, and joy from us. When an organ wants joy and love, it hurts. When a person lacks joy inside, their organs hurt more and more. So there are two ways. The first method is not very effective. It's to rejoice in the organ itself. This is in extreme cases, when it attaches consciousness to itself very much. It's already hurting a lot, and you start to rejoice in it. You say, "You're so good." You stroke it and give it a state of happiness. The pain goes away immediately. I've relieved pain in people this way very often. Let's say the heart hurts. The heart has certain emotions. The health guide contains affirmations. The heart has certain character qualities. If you speak these words to the heart in a certain way, the pain goes away immediately. You achieve amazing results. The liver has other qualities. The intestines have others. The health guide contains affirmations. I've outlined them approximately according to qualities. You can simply memorize them. When this organ starts to hurt, you can talk to it in this way. And after a while, it relaxes and the pain goes away. The organ receives the energy it needs, and it is not in pain anymore. But there's a simpler way. If you just sit down at this time and start wishing happiness to all the people around you, to your loved ones. If you treat people well and the pain continues to remain, it means you are subject to the influence of some events. So you should rejoice in all the events that happen around you there. If you were fired from work, it's for the best. Everything comes from my fate, which is teaching me something. I don't know, but I rejoice because it's God's will. So I will be happy even if I'm dealing with pain. Why do we deal with pain? Because it has touched our false ego. We've become attached to some job and think, this is where my happiness is. But fate knows better what our happiness consists of, and we get fired from this job. A feeling of pain occurs. We think, how can this be? I worked so well. I'm so good. Pain arises. We need to sit down, relax, and think that we don't really understand what God wants. What's better for us, what's worse. There's a Vedic story in this regard. I'll tell you this story at the end. There's such Vedic wisdom, it precisely reveals the question of what can be good and what can be bad. There was a wise man. He was a king's advisor. Once the king returned from hunting and his finger was cut off. He had some bad luck during the hunt. The wise man told him that this was a very favorable sign. According to all the stars and everything, the king was very angry. He put this wise man in prison. He often took him hunting. And I think even this time he took him hunting. There, during the hunt, when the king's finger was cut off, he said that it was a very favorable sign. And the next time, when the wise man was in prison, the king went hunting again. The king was taken in by some aborigines, wild people. They stripped him and decided to offer him to idols. There was idolatry there, and then they planned to eat him. When they stripped him, they'd already put all kinds of fragrant oils on him. They wanted to roast him. They sprinkled him with everything necessary, and in the end they suddenly noticed that he was missing a phalanx on one finger. He was defective. As a result, they were so upset that they didn't do anything to him. They just started looking for someone else who wasn't defective. The king returned to his palace like that. Then he let the wise man go. He said, "It's good that I cut off my finger. I understand now that this was good. But what's good about you sitting in prison all this time?" The wise man says, "Of course it's good. I didn't go hunting with you." So you see how well it turned out. Both cutting off the finger was good, and being put in prison was good. It's possible when there is knowledge. Therefore, if you were fired from your job, it's good, 100%. You just need to understand the plan. You need to understand that everything is done for our best. Therefore, we must be very serious in this regard. To be optimistic and wise, we need to study everything. Study the depth of knowledge. Study everything practically. There is dry knowledge. It doesn't bring joy. Dry knowledge doesn't bring joy, and there is living knowledge. We need to seek living knowledge that brings joy and fills the heart with knowledge. We need to seek this living knowledge. Look for it in the scriptures. Seek it from sages, people who have mastered it. Such people exist. We need to find them. We should get a source of happiness and understanding of things from it. Then all pains and sufferings will leave us if we engage in this. We have to try really hard at it, to be very serious about it. And you see that many things are resolved. Many problems are solved without much effort and expense. You simply need knowledge for this. You know what knowledge is. We talked in previous lectures about how it's all connected. To learn more on the subject of health and healing of the body, please make sure to read my health guide, available for download on my YouTube channel or on my Instagram page. Thank you very much, and see you soon.